Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another great guest, a unique guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I will share ideas, insights, and best practices for building professional relationships and how you can excel at business networking. But occasionally I'll be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists. These people share their knowledge to help us build those relationships and understand how things work and just kind of give us some insights. Today's guest is James Sinclair. He is the chief executive and co-founder of Enterprise Alumni, the market leader in alumni and retiree engagement platforms. Their software powers corporate alumni networks of the world's largest companies, leveraging this vast untapped pool of people, the talent that were in the organization, sales, marketing, there's a whole community there. And really hadn't thought about it until James's name came across my desk. But James has background in large enterprise innovation, and he worked for companies including IBM, SAP, EDS. Outside of his day job, he contributes to media on the future of work, large enterprise innovation, and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the show, James.
Thanks, Frank. What a great introduction. I feel like I need some theme music.
You have to live up to it now. You have to live up to it.
That's a shame.
Well, tell us a little bit about your business, and then let's kind of jump into, you wrote this book, The Alumni Advantage. And for those listening don't know, and I guess I'll share with you, James, I started my career in public accounting. I was with what's now PricewaterhouseCoopers. And the exit wasn't horrible, but it wasn't. I've often thought, I'm in contact with nobody there. And I don't know. To me, it seems like there was something lost. There was a relationship and they were just happy that it was done. And that was pretty much the story of everybody. And you've got a different notion on this. So jump in, please.
Well, so it's not so much a different notion, Frank, but I think, the first thing is to kind of explain, if it's okay with you, what corporate alumni means. Essentially, these companies spend so much money recruiting, training, mentoring, developing their talent, their employees. And then when the employee leaves, as you mentioned, goodbye. Maybe some of your coworkers do something. Maybe you stay in touch with one or two people, but really it's goodbye. And I think there's two interesting points. You actually brought up one that I always talk about, which is if you ever needed the services of a PwC style company, there's 4 companies out there in that kind of roster. How would you choose, or why would you choose PwC versus EY? Well, the answer should be because you're an alumni. Right. But if you didn't have the greatest exit and you don't feel any affinity to PwC, why would they earn your business? When they should, by default, it shouldn't even be a question. And I think you've got to think about the same even in retail, AT&T versus T-Mobile. It's the same thing, give or take. Why would I choose one versus the other? It's either because I was an alumni, because someone recommended it, because I know someone. And so what we're saying to companies is, why wouldn't you just keep in touch? Why wouldn't the exit when you leave be a moment of positive? Congratulations, you're going on to do something amazing. We wish you luck. We support you. Let us know how we can help you. Like, imagine how that would have changed your exit if someone had said that to you. But, when you left fairly, leavers were treated as, it's almost treason. You're a traitor. You're not loyal. Get out. And I don't think that's ever been an effective strategy.
No, it's it isn't. And, I think some of the people got the treatment when they were going to clients, and it was so, so calculated, I guess, okay, you're going to the big client. Well, we've got to kiss your ass,
Right.
This is a podcast. We could talk like this. But if you were going to oh, God forbid if you were going to a competitor or anything like that. Or, for me, I went into private practice and it was like, oh, you're dead to us and it wasn't everybody.
Right.
Because I had a lot of friends there and still have friends. But there wasn't, I don't think anybody really cared. And in my mind, it probably should have started years before that, because that environment, and it's not like this in all of corporate America, but certainly in the public, in the professional services firms, the large professional services firms, it's up or out, meaning you're going to, you go all the way to partner, or you're going to kind of move out at some point. And it's pretty clear it's pretty clear within a couple of years who's going to be moving on to partner and who's not. And they should have done a better job at that moment saying, hey, listen, we want you to have the best possible career. We want you to be successful.
It's also so short-sighted, and I get it.
Yeah.
You're leaving and going to a client, which means you have an immediate value to us.
Right.
There's a lot of companies that will actually say, we don't want you to come back. We'd rather you go to a customer because you're more likely to drive spend. But it's so short-sighted to not think at some point in your life, are you going to meet, work, do something that can be of benefit of PwC? Even if it's as simple as liking some of their content on Instagram, even if it's as simple as referring them to a colleague or talking positively about them. So I think what you've seen the market change is realizing leaving is now inevitable. So it's just a given. Leaving's inevitable. No one's here for life. And customers should start thinking about that or companies should start thinking about that from a positive thing. When you leave a company, they should take credit for the next job you have. You haven't, been disloyal. You're going to your next job because you got value with me and with us. And I think that's what it means to staying in touch. It's saying, look, we need to stay in touch with you throughout your career because we don't know where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what left turn you're going to make, but we want to make sure that there's some sort of a connection. And I think that's where, it doesn't matter whether you're, people talk PwC, so people think alumni must mean big business, but think about a small business hiring. The first time you're looking to hire someone, you're going to go out to your network. Who knows someone? And so what you're really changing is the difference between hiring a stranger, someone from LinkedIn, Indeed, Dice, a job search, who you pray is going to be great, versus hiring someone and by it could be a referral from a friend, it could be someone you used to work with. You're just mitigating your risk. And so this is not a conversation around just big business. This is your network is your net worth. And the same concept applies to your business network, your company's network is your network, your ecosystem of vendors, your partners. People go everywhere. People move. And if you are intelligent with maintaining a relationship in some manner, it doesn't matter when the dividends come. The dividends just will come because it's just a fact.
Yeah. What are some of your clients finding? I mean, obviously it's positive, but and we don't need to get into names or anything like that, but just kind of in general,
So we have a lot of banks. We have most of the major banks. And what's interesting about that one is when you leave one bank, by default, you go to another bank. That's just how it works. And so they cannot have this, oh my God, you went to a competitor. There's nowhere else for you to go. That's literally it. You're going somewhere in the ecosystem. Generally, what you see is number one is about recruiting. Recruiting is just the number one thing that everyone seems to see so much value from, because when you come back, I know your secrets, Frank. If I've worked for you, I know what's great about you, what's not great about you. You also know the same about me. So when we talk about me returning, we're having a really honest conversation around what's expected of each other. And when I come back, I'm going to stay 2 years longer. I'm going to be more impactful in the business, and you're not going to have to pay a recruiter. You're not going to have to pay any of those things. And you're not going to have to train me on how to work out how to use the laptop. So recruiting tends to be the number one kind of value driver, but you see it drift also into sales and business development. Sales is a great one. Even in retail, we have one of our customers, big retail organization, and they offer a 7% discount to all of their alumni. One of my favorite quotes comes from the CHRO of Chili's. And he says, when someone leaves, it's a promotion from employee to customer.
Oh, interesting.
And I'd be damned if I wasn't like, wow, I need to steal that, because it's 100% true. It doesn't matter what business you're in, I think.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast. I confused reading and listening to podcasts. It's all information in your head. It's all
a blur.
Yeah. It's all stored the same. But talking about Netflix, and they're, they have a PowerPoint that new hires go through. And one of the first slides is, we are a sports team. we're not a rec team, we're a professional team, and your services, when your services are no longer needed, they're no longer needed. Just understand that. And it went on in the podcast talk about, one woman who'd been there 20 years, and a company grows and you need to kind of keep up with it or not. And she wasn't, and she was kind of lamenting the fact that, geez, I've given this 20 years of my life and this is how I'm being treated. And one of the higher ups said, you knew it would be this way. Now you just get out there and be the best damn alumnus that you can be. That's what we need from you now. It's just kind of
true.
Yeah.
It's also removing the awkward. I think there's an area where, again, businesses don't want to talk about the awkward conversations. So I can tell you something that I implemented here based on reading Reid Hoffman's book, The Alliance, where he talked about people work in tours of duty. You work 2 to 3 years, you do a project, then you move on. And he says, if you understand where they're going to move to and what they want, you now know exactly A, when they're going to leave, why, and B, what you need to do to retain them. And I think that's the other change is I think having an employee is a privilege, not a right. And I think that's what's moved. Yeah. If we look at your PwC days, there was a view that you're theirs. And that's the end of the story. They weren't doing you any favors, and I think that's what's changed. Actually, it is a privilege, not a right, to have someone be employed by you, especially if they're a high performer. And therefore, it's your duty as an employer to retain them and to earn that privilege every day. One of the things we asked one of our engineers who just joined us was, when you leave me in 3 years, junior engineer, just starting her career, when you leave me in 3 years, what role where are you going to go to? You thinking Google? Are you going to have headcount? Are you going to be a manager? What are you thinking? And she was like, wow, no one's ever actually asked me that question because career kind of just happens.
Right.
I don't know. And I was like, well, the reason I want to think about it is because I need to make sure that in 2-3 years, I'm pushing you forward so that you're going to want to stay here. So when the recruiter comes in with an amazing role, you're going to say, I'm good. I work at a firm that literally is doing everything I wanted and is meeting my goals. But what having that conversation did was it broke down the awkward of talking about leaving. Yeah. So when she leaves, by the way, so she likes the idea of headcount. She does believe that she wants to manage people, and we're not very big, so we might not have that role for her. So when she walks into my office and says, hey, James, I got offered this opportunity and I'm going to get headcount and it's with this company, I'm not surprised. My only response is going to be, that is incredible. I'm delighted. I'm excited. Yeah. What can I do? And I think people imagine how you would feel walking out the door if your CEO, if your manager said the words, congratulations, how can I be an ally to you? And I think that's what you're seeing in the past few years, especially in the last year, of companies having to have more empathy.
And no, I think it's spot on. I remember, and I will admit, part of the problem rested with me and the other workers. And part of it, I think, is maybe in the culture, but coming into the firm, it was, hey, there's this partnership thing out here, and right. It was taboo to be. I remember having, certainly taking vacation days to go interview, trying to find another job, but just hoping to God nobody would find out. And that was stressful. And I would have loved to have been able to sit down and have the conversation you had with the employee and say, you know what, I'm not really big six accounting material. I'm a people person. I don't like digging in the tax code, but I could probably do really well somewhere with my skill set, And I was just afraid to have that conversation. And
because it shouldn't be your conversation to have. You're the employee. It should be the company that's making it safe to have that conversation, and I think that's what's got to change. I think that's where we focus with our alumni programs for our customers. It's making it okay to have that conversation, being proud of the legacy that your alumni have and being totally okay with it. And so I think if we think about your point of, you may not be the right person, how you leave a job is not a definition of your career. You can hate your manager, you can hate the role you're in, you can hate the work they're giving you today and leave because of it. But it doesn't define why you joined that organization. It doesn't define the overall learning that you got. It doesn't define that the PwC logo, I imagine, served you well in some scenarios.
Sure.
And so you have to separate how you leave from your career. You can leave hating your manager, but still like the company and support the company and want to see success. And I think that's okay as well. You know, when you talked about leaving PwC, it was about that moment of departure. And one small tweak, and it doesn't matter whether it was you. It's not your problem whether it's you. Of course it's you. Whether you're leaving to get a promotion, whether you're going to another company, whether you hate the company, it's always you. You know what I mean? And so I think that's what you're starting to see. And so when we think about what that means, even for networking, when I started to listen, Frank, I was telling you, listen to some of your other conversations, that as a business owner, your network is everything, period. Referrals will close quicker. You know, friends will, friends you're doing business with will accept perhaps, issues easier. Like there's so many benefits of network, not just recruiting and sales, it's support. It takes a village, it takes a tribe to succeed. There's no individual who's succeeded by herself or by himself. And so what alumni or the conversation is saying is when they walk out that door, don't lose that moment. You have no idea the career they're going to have. We were on the other day with, and I'm sorry to go on, with Mike DeStefano from EY. And he was talking about one of their junior tax accountants very, very early on in his career and is now on the board at Coca-Cola. You just have no idea. And he said, we kept in touch with him. We've never not been in touch with him. He is EY through and through, and he responds to our emails. He's part of our alumni group because we've always been that way. So because we were good to him, even when he was just the intern or the junior tax accountant all the way through, it didn't suddenly change because he became a board member. And I think that's what people, when you think about networking, you cannot think about the short-term value. You cannot, otherwise you're dead out the door. You've got to think and recognize people will move, people will change. And at some point you just never know the conversation that will happen where your name will be dropped or your company name will be dropped. And you want to make sure when it's being dropped, it's a positive one.
No, I mean, you're totally speaking my language. I mainly have these conversations in the small business world, I'll call small business America. And you're really kind of opening my eyes to, what it needs to be in the corporate setting as well. My wife works for a Fortune 500 company, and I will have a conversation with her about all of this tonight. What are you guys doing? Are you doing anything? And maybe not. I don't know. I would imagine you run into this where some people totally see it, and I will tell you this about E&Y. E&Y, for those who don't know, Ernst & Young is a public accounting firm like PwC. E&Y had a reputation of being exactly like you described, of they were just really good to their people. And I never knew if it was our office or just a firm-wide culture, why PwC, or it was Coopers & Lybrand at the time, why it was the way it was. But I would imagine you run into companies that totally embrace this and others that are like, we don't need this.
I would say, and without being broad and stereotyping, there is a little bit of a generational gap. We're talking about my father, job for life, 40 years. He didn't, but like 40 years AT&T, 40 years GE, 40 years P&G. And that just doesn't exist anymore. 40 years P&G, that's it. That's your whole life. And that's it. You're going to retire. You're going to get your retirement and you're going to love that company for the rest of your life. And you're going to bleed P&G blue. That doesn't exist anymore. And so, yes, we go into companies where there'll be champions of this, where people say, well, if we have the money, why wouldn't we spend it on our current employees? If we had the money, why wouldn't we do this? And then you turn and you say, well, let's think about how many alumni our company have over 20 years, 30 years, 50. You're talking about millions of people. And imagine if an iota of a percentage said something nice about us, an iota of a percentage referred us, an iota of a percentage liked our LinkedIn post. So you were talking about kind of your program and, the alumni out of your program, theoretically. Imagine if on your social media, your alumni were pressing like, it suddenly goes from X number of likes to 10X. And so it doesn't have to be that I'm keeping in touch and they do business. It's just, I've always thought as alumni programs as an opportunity to protect your brand, meaning that there's people out there who are just talking good about you when the opportunity arises. But you're right about E&Y. Everything I've heard, the conversation we just had with Mike, was just reflection of it wasn't a short-termist. If it was short-termist, they would never have kept in touch with that junior tax accountant.
Right.
What can he do for this organization? 10 years till he's even allowed onto the 15th floor. Nope. You never know. And it served them really well. So now when this board member is thinking about who am I going to choose from my, big accounting firm, well, I'm going to choose the company that's kept in touch with me for my entire career and has been good to me my entire career. I don't see the need to talk to anyone else. And people sometimes misunderstand the value of your brand out there. And again, people are like, well, I'm a small business, only 3 of us, or I'm a 2-person business, 6-person. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Your brand is the only thing you have, and you need people out there protecting it and supporting you.
No, it's all very good conversation. Do you think, I don't want to call it big data, but the fact that I imagine when I left the firm, it was like, okay, there was a file. It was where do we shred this sucker kind of a thing. But right. Now, we're able to hang on to electronic records. Does it make it easier for people to keep track of their millions of employees and millions of alumni? Excuse me.
So absolutely. I mean, you have sites like LinkedIn and others where it's very easy to see that type of data, but also digital has just made it easier to be able to identify, find, talk to, connect with. It's not that difficult. People always talk about something like, well, retirees, they're so hard, they're not online. They are. And I always give this example of the reason retirees are online is because they've had to learn how to become internet junkies to be able to stay in touch with their grandkids. Yeah. And I know people are like, well, you're stereotyping, but it's true. My parents learned FaceTime because they wanted to speak to their grandkids, not because they were like, I should learn this video calling technology from this black box that cost me $900. And right. So people underestimate the power of that. People underestimate so much about the people they interact with on a day-to-day basis. And people think that networking is a job and therefore it's a task you put on your task list. It's not. Networking and being good to people and expecting nothing in return and being a friend to people and expecting nothing in return is a choice you make. It's a choice you make as part of your life. If you are doing this as a task-based exercise, you will burn out. Period. You cannot maintain this you're just trying to manage sales leads essentially when you're trying to turn networking into a business. And I look to your foundation of what networking means. It's bringing people together around common values, shared values, friendship. Yeah. That's not that's the underpinning of just community. When I looked at your business, that was my first thought. Is actually what you have is a community business. Yeah. And where I feel safe, I can talk, I can understand, I can learn, and it's a bunch of people I want to be around and I actively choose to be around. That's a community. That's no different from the Harley Davidson Motorcycle Club. And your ability to have been able to create a structure around that is what so many people need. The how. I love the idea of community. I want all of this. I just have no idea how to execute it.
Right. Great. Let's shift gears here real quick. How can the listeners help you? Obviously the Alumni Advantage, I would imagine it's out there on Amazon. Everything's on Amazon. Buy your book. You would also be interested in being on other people's podcasts. So my fellow podcast guests out there, very interesting conversation. I'll put the way to contact you in the show notes. Other ways people can help you.
I'm on all the social. Look, I'm always interested in people who have a perspective about what I'm doing, my approach, what I've said. I love diversity of opinion. You and I talked about that just before we press record, which is, it's very easy to get caught up in your own cycle of thinking. So, if there's someone else out there thinking about this very differently, thinking about community or value or has an experience, I want to hear about it. I want it to help shape my opinion. So I'm a massive fan of conversations.
Well, James, I really appreciate your time on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's been great being here.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.